In 1863, amidst the turmoil of the American Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln declared freedom for all enslaved people. Despite this proclamation, millions remained in bondage, forced to labor under harsh conditions. Emancipation tells the harrowing story of one such man, Peter, who embarks on a perilous journey to reclaim his freedom from a brutal plantation owner named John. Today, we will explain the movie Emancipation, which is based on the true events of a slave's life in the 18th century. In January 1863, President Abraham Lincoln issued a proclamation stating that all enslaved black people must be freed. However, in a place in the South, there were still over 3.5 million enslaved individuals who were forced to do various kinds of work. The owner of that place was a person named John. Among these enslaved people was a man named Peter. One day, while Peter was spending time at home with his family, two men arrived and told him to come with them. Peter did not want to go because he didn't want to leave his family, but the two men were cruel. They began to beat Peter and pointed a gun at his wife, threatening to kill her if he didn't come with them. Despite not wanting to go, Peter was forced to leave with them. After this, the two men took Peter through the jungle to another location. It took them 3 weeks to reach there, where many black slaves were working on a railroad construction project. Many of the people there became very sick from working, and now Peter also had to work with them. While working there, Peter learned that the enslaved people were subjected to severe abuse and mistreatment. One person there informed Peter that a man named Jim was the captain, and he was very cruel. If anyone disobeyed him, Jim would kill them. These people were made to work so hard that they could barely walk at the end of the day. They were also tied up and kept as prisoners in one place after work. Peter asked everyone, "Don't you all miss your families?" They said that even if they missed their families, there was no way out because they could never escape from there and would eventually die. However, Peter had faith in God and believed that one day, if not today, they would be free from there and would surely reunite with their families. The next day, while Peter was working, he overheard two guards talking among themselves, saying that Abraham Lincoln had ordered the emancipation of all slaves and that everyone would soon be free. At that moment, a guard noticed that the bread made that day was not properly baked and started beating the cook. Peter was very upset by this and, in anger, stared at the guard. Seeing Peter staring, the guard ordered him to come over. Just as the guard was about to kill Peter, Jim arrived and stopped him from doing so. Late at night, while Peter was with his companions, Jim approached and told him, "I am your God, and you are my dog. You are alive only because of me." Peter replied that it would be fair to give him the same food that Jim's dogs ate, suggesting that their food was worse than what Jim's dogs received. The next day, as Peter was going to work, Jim tried to intimidate him with his dog. However, Jim didn't harm Peter and eventually let him go. At lunchtime, Peter informed his companions that Abraham Lincoln had ordered the release of all slaves and that all the enslaved people were heading towards Baton Rouge. It would take about 5 days to get to Baton Rouge due to the very tough road conditions. However, if they made it there, they could count on receiving help from the Union Army. Hearing this, several of them decided to join Peter and escape with him. After lunch, as they returned to work, one of them died while performing his tasks. Peter was instructed to move the body of the deceased to another location. When Peter went to move the body to the designated location, a guard was about to kill him. However, before that could happen, Peter attacked the guards and managed to escape. This opportunity allowed several others to flee as well, but most of the people were shot and killed by the guards. Only 3 people managed to escape with Peter. They fled through the jungle and reached the edge of a lake. Inside the lake, there were large alligators. Meanwhile, Jim and his dogs were pursuing them, trying to capture them. Peter and his companions had no way to cross the lake except by entering it, where there were alligators. Peter and his 2 companions entered the water, but one of them, terrified by the sight of the alligators, hesitated to enter and stayed behind on the shore. At that moment, Jim's dogs attacked the one who had stayed on the shore. Jim arrived soon after and, finding him unable to escape, killed him. Peter and the other 2 companions managed to cross the lake. Afterward, they decided that the 3 of them would go in different directions to make it harder for Jim to capture them all at once. In his flight, Peter reached a house and stole some clothes to bind his feet. However, A little girl in the house saw him and began to ring the bell. Hearing the bell, Jim, who was nearby, was drawn to the sound and came to investigate. To save his life, Peter fled again and returned to the lake. He hid in the water among the alligators to avoid being captured. Jim searched for Peter and eventually arrived at the lake. Seeing that the water was full of alligators, he concluded that Peter would never risk entering such dangerous waters. Believing Peter would not emerge, Jim decided to leave. After Jim left, Peter tried to come out of the water. Just then, an alligator attacked him and dragged him back into the lake. Peter fought off the alligator and killed it, managing to survive. However, he was badly injured and, in some way, spent the night in the jungle. The next day, he covered himself with mud because he knew that Jim and his men were still searching for him. By covering his body with mud, the dogs wouldn't be able to pick up his scent and find him. After that, Peter continued moving forward despite his injured body because he wanted to return to his family. After walking for a while, he spotted a treehouse made of branches and leaves. Upon reaching there, he lit a fire and heated a knife. He then applied the hot knife to his wounds to prevent any infection from setting in. There was a small boat there, and Peter took it and began to row forward. As he traveled, he stopped to gather honey from a beehive he found along the way. On the other hand, Peter's wife was approached by a man who informed her that Peter's previous owner had sold him to someone else and that he would never return. The man told her that she now had to go work in another place with him, or they would kill her child. Afraid, Peter's wife agreed to go with him, and the man said he would come to take her very soon. Meanwhile, Peter was shown leaving the boat and continuing on foot when he suddenly saw one of his companions. His companion had also escaped from Jim and his vicious dogs. Both of them were determined to survive, but then they heard the barking of Jim's dogs. They realized the dogs were closing in and would soon catch up with them. On the way, Peter found an onion and suggested to his companion that they should rub it on their bodies. His companion was reluctant and didn't want to do it. Peter rubbed the onion on his body, and then they both started to run from that spot to escape. Knowing that the dogs would soon reach them, they found a hiding spot and concealed themselves there. Peter's companion climbed up a tree to hide there, but Jim's dogs picked up his scent and realized he was hiding above in the tree. Jim ordered him to come down, but he refused, saying, "I don't want to be your slave anymore." Because he refused to come down, Jim killed him. Jim was determined to find Peter by any means, but because Peter had rubbed onion all over his body, Jim's dogs couldn't pick up his scent and were unable to track him down. After Jim and his men left, Peter cautiously emerged from the tree trunk and started moving forward again. After wandering through the dense jungle, he eventually returned to the house where he had previously stolen clothes. Peter saw that someone had set the house on fire. When he cautiously went inside, he found some food and also noticed a small child who perhaps worked there. Just then, one of Jim's men arrived and aimed a gun threateningly at Peter. The child Peter had brought from inside the house unfortunately died. Afterward, Peter fought with Jim's man, wrestled the gun from him, and managed to escape from there. Jim's hunting dog was still chasing him, so Peter killed the dog as well. After running all night, Peter managed to get far away from that place. After traveling some distance, Peter saw many injured people lying around, and he heard the sound of gunfire echoing through the area. He realized that a battle was taking place nearby. Just then, Jim arrived there on horseback. Jim was about to kill Peter when someone suddenly shot and killed him. It turned out that a group of black soldiers was nearby, and they quickly intervened. They took Peter to a medical area where many injured people were being treated. Everyone there was part of the army, and Peter received thorough medical treatment. Once he fully recovered, he was taken to meet with an army officer. Peter explained everything to the officer, detailing how he had been mistreated, how he had been forcibly sent from one place to another for railway work, and the harsh conditions he had endured. The officer informed Peter that there was a fight for the freedom of black people, and that he needed to join and support their cause. Ultimately, Peter accepted the captain's offer and joined the army. As he had no other choice without winning this battle, freedom would remain out of reach. Here, Peter saw his companion, who had also escaped but was in an injured state. Seeing his companion alive and well made Peter feel a sense of relief and happiness. A few days later, Some individuals arrived and asked Peter to describe the abuse suffered by enslaved people. Peter removed his shirt to reveal the extensive scars and the severe condition of his back, which had been brutally beaten. These individuals took detailed photographs of Peter's injuries to vividly illustrate to the world the extreme cruelty and suffering endured by enslaved people. Peter then joined Abraham Lincoln's Army Group, working to free those black individuals who were still being enslaved and mistreated. They fought vigorously against the opposition, ultimately liberating many enslaved people and ending their suffering. Peter then went to the place where his family had been. Seeing them again made him extremely happy. He gave thanks to God, expressing his eternal gratitude and faith. It was his trust in God that gave him the courage to endure everything, and it was this courage that led him back to his family. So this was the true story of an event that took place in 1863, depicted in the movie Emancipation released in 2022. I hope you enjoyed today's video. See you in the next one. Please like and leave a comment. Make sure to subscribe and press the bell icon to receive all updates.